A unique drone that was brought down in the Bryansk region. This is no ordinary drone. This is a quadcopter with a front propeller. It has a pod underneath for the camera. It's Chinese built, sourced from abroad, I guess, and given to the Ukrainian intelligence, where they used it to carry 2 other FPV drones to attack within the Bryansk region. Currently, right now, there's no attacked FPV drones to it because the pilot air had already released them, and then the guys knocked down this drone. But it's crashed and it has broken carbon fiber propellers. And as you can see underneath these 2 areas, there's pod holders for cameras, and even a camera pod right here. And then there's the FPV drone. And as I said, this is a very unique drone because it can fly 1,000 kilometers and carry FPV drones to be released and piloted by other pilots.
That is a Chinese FDG-33 UAV. And, you know, if you guys saw the video I did with Larry C. Johnson that I posted yesterday, what I showed was a missile that had lots of parts from different countries. So I'm not saying that China is sending this over. China has a policy not to get involved. But I am wondering, Colonel, do you think that Ukraine might be using a Chinese drone to perhaps maybe try and trick China or somehow pull China into the conflict? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts go back a long way, and they go back to my revelations that were, shall I say, I got to be careful about this. Revelations that came upon me as I participated in the effort to stop A.Q. Khan, the father of the Islamic nuclear bomb, from going any further. And we were trying to disrupt that network. And as I was in these highly secret meetings about what was happening across the globe, we developed charts of all the countries that were in some way or other participating in A.Q. Khan's efforts. We did the same thing with Saddam Hussein. We did the same thing with Muammar Gaddafi and other leaders. And it was really eye-opening to see how many countries were participating in the world arms trade. And I would recommend to all of your listeners Misha Glenny's book, which is a little bit old right now, but his book is entitled McMafia. And it's an apt title because it is McDonald's times 10 on steroids. It is probably $3 to $4 trillion worth of money each year in this black market. And no one knows who's selling to whom or what, except we did discover that many of our allies, for example, were complicit in providing nuclear material to A.Q. Khan's network. And we demarched all those allies, and I got to be very careful here, but suffice to say that it is a very lucrative trade. Before the war commenced, before the special military operation commenced, I think Ukraine was number 3 in the world in terms of arms sales in the world. That's illicit and licit. We are number 1. Russia, I think, is number 2. China is number 4 now or whatever. But this is humongous trade and very lucrative and participated in by almost every country in the world with a warehouse where they can make some kind of arms. And now these drones, like you just showed, maybe not like that one, as sophisticated as that one. Some of the less sophisticated drones can be made in your garage and you can sell them. And there are buyers. So we have proliferated weapons in the world to an extent that we could blow ourselves up without even going to nuclear weapons sometime in the not too distant future. There are just so many weapons out there. We have over 400 million small arms weapons up to 51 caliber in the United States owned by civilians. It's stunning how many weapons there are in the world now.
Wow. So then Ukraine got this through, I guess, a third party.
Very well could.
That was produced in China.
Yeah, I mean, or a fourth party or a fifth party even. I mean, these networks are just exhaustive and extensive. We call the charts we drew up spider charts because when you looked at the lines, it looked like a spider web. This is where it started, the request, for example. This is where it went to a third sort of cover company. This is where it went down to a company that was an interim agent going to the arms maker. And this is where it got to the arms maker. And this is how it got back, another route that it got back on when the purchase was made.
Mm-hmm. And so basically what he showed us, if I understand correctly, I think he said it was using a signal relay or something like that. So what we're looking at is like a mama drone, you could say, that goes a certain distance and then it can release the baby drones to go even further. Is that the idea?
That's the idea. Or it could be an F-35, for example, one of the strengths of the F-35, when it will fly, and that's not that often, but one of the strengths is that it can coordinate multiple, not necessarily drones, but drones, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, you name it. It can coordinate all of these things at once from a single platform. Mm-hmm. So it's a very sophisticated agent out there in the air, if you will, which can coordinate all manner of battlefield actions that seem disparate, but nonetheless are being orchestrated from that one platform.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, then the other, it's chilling, especially for me personally, because I'm raising my kids in this country, and
in this world.
Yeah, that's true.
It ain't just restricted to Ukraine.
That's true.
Gaza is full of this technology. Gaza has technology where a drone flies into a surgical ward controlled by the IDF. In that ward, it processes in a nanosecond 3,000 bits of data and assesses whether the surgeon, the person on the mat being operated on, the nurse, or anyone else in that room is a viable enemy, and then kills it. Thank Palantir and Anduril and other Silicon Valley firms for that sophisticated instrument.
Terrible. Okay, well, regarding the missiles, the HIMARS, because we just talked about drones. So then, I'm thinking about how Trump has been saying in the past month, especially since the Alaska summit, I'm just going to sell the weapons. That's it. I'm kind of like, I'm out. I'm not involved in this conflict, but we will sell the weapons to NATO. But I've heard several times, like the HIMARS missiles and whatnot, these are, they can only be guided and controlled by DC. So is that the case? And if that's the case, then is Trump contradicting himself here to say, I'm just a salesman now, but yet he's not, if DC is still controlling where these things go? Can you help us out on that?
With regard to Trump, I can't crawl into his mind and see that he knows these things, but I can say that I doubt he does because he's not smart enough to, and he doesn't stop to read and he doesn't study. I'll give you a case in point. The other day, he said, we have so many Tomahawk missiles. We just give Tomahawk missiles to everyone. I've checked with Raytheon RTX, the principal maker of the Tomahawk missile. We don't have thousands of Tomahawk missiles. We don't even have close to that. So why is he making these statements? Were we to go into full production with all the facilities we have, we might be able to make 56, 57 a month. Think about that for a minute. We don't have half our entire THAAD missile supply. Half of it is in Israel, dedicated to Israel's defense. He makes these statements and he doesn't know what he's talking about. We don't have anywhere near the capacity, industrial base capacity, that he keeps insinuating we have. I think sometimes that maybe he knows that because Hegseth, outside of being a sycophant, may have acquainted him with the fact that he's making some dangerous statements. And so he keeps on making them because he can't back off. You can't say I can make 2,000 Tomahawks a month and then learn you can't make more than 50 a month and go out and say, well, I made an error. That would be too much for Trump to do, to fess up to. So I have to assume that either he's lying when he told the truth or he's just lying and no one bothers to disabuse him of the lie. And you're right. The grievous concern, I think, that Putin has, and I would have it if I were he too, is if you put these sophisticated missiles, even if you just shoot one of them, if you only provide them with 2, 3, if you shoot them and they go into Russia, they have to have the United States assistance to do so, either from satellites or from on the ground or both. In most cases, it's both. So you've entered the war. NATO, you've entered the war. Washington, you've entered the war. And he has been very explicit that if we keep doing that, then he is going to do something in reciprocation. And that means he's going to pick out a NATO facility in Poland or somewhere else in NATO and destroy it. And I think then we're off to the races because we're escalating majorly then. But I wouldn't blame him were he to do so because we're the provocateur here. We're the one provoking him to do this.
So with this new, the long-range missiles, now the drones, it seems like we're getting into a high-tech world where, a country can no longer shield their women and children behind, a far-off battlefront. And if that's the case, I mean, what is the military benefit in deleting civilians. And, could you characterize this as military terrorism?
Rolling?
Yes.
Did you like that clip? If so, click here. But if you love that clip, click here and watch the full video. Also remember to like, subscribe, comment, and most importantly, share before I disappear.